This is Commitment 2018, the Alabama Democratic gubernatorial primary debate.
Good evening and welcome everyone. I'm Lisa Crane and we're live at Vulcan Park and Museum in Birmingham. Tonight, a one-hour debate between three Democratic candidates running for governor of Alabama. Please welcome from left to right, former Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, Sue Bell Cobb, former State Representative James Fields, and Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox. Now, here are the rules for tonight's debate. Candidates have up to 60 seconds to answer questions specifically directed to them. They have 45 seconds to answer a question posed to all the candidates. The candidates will be granted a 30-second rebuttal at the moderator's discretion. Now, at the end of the debate, each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask one of their opponents a question. 60 seconds will be allowed for the answer with a 30-second rebuttal. We're going to wrap up with 1 minute for each candidate's closing statement. Now, the candidates have not seen the questions they'll be asked tonight. On tonight's debate panel, from left to right, are WVTM 13's Guy Rawlings, Mark Hughes Cobb from our partner, from our news partner, the Tuscaloosa News, and in WVTM 13's Ian Wrights. The first question in tonight's debate comes from WVTM 13's Guy Rawlings, and his question is for all three candidates. Guy?
According to state statistics, Alabama's unemployment rate 3.7% currently, an improvement from year to year, but there are counties like Clark, Lowndes, and Wilcox and others that have as high as 10% unemployment rates. As governor, what would you do to help improve those unemployment rates?
Judge Cobb, your answer first, and you have 45 seconds.
Guy, I'm from Conecuh County, and I know about Clark County, and I know about the challenges that all of the rural counties have. When the people of Alabama elect me governor, my first proposal is for the Lifelong Learner Lottery, and it is going to ultimately create thousands of jobs that every single county will get, not just 2 or 3 when a big industry comes in. The money will go for career tech. It will go to help with fix the gap for Pell Grants, which basically will mean we're going to max out our workforce development. Clark County is going to get their share of those jobs, and when they do, we're going to have children in Clark County and every other rural county in Alabama that will have children that will be successful. When we basically meet our workforce development, we're telling the entire world.
I'm sorry, Judge Cobb, we're out of time. Let's
you.
go now to Mr. Fields. Same question to you, 45 seconds.
Thank you, and thank you for having us here tonight. The unemployment rate is low, but the problem is that we're underemployed. And that's why people in South Alabama are moving to North Alabama to get gainful employment, to earn a decent living, to provide for their families. We need a fair and equitable wage for everyone throughout our state to keep people in their home counties, in their hometowns, to provide for their families. And so that's the issue that we got to attack, and we need to talk to employers about providing good employment, wholesome employment, to where everybody is making a fair and decent wage.
All right, thank you very much. Mayor Maddox, to you now, 45 seconds.
Good evening, and certainly I want to thank Judge Cobb and Representative Fields for allowing me to join you tonight, and to NBC 13 for hosting this debate. At home watching's my wife Stephanie and my daughter Taylor, and my son Eli, who's 4, has already gone to bed. But my entire life we have been 45th, 46th, 47th in everything that matters. And when you look at the Black Belt counties of Alabama, their health care, their education, their infrastructure suffering, we cannot bring in new jobs until we're willing to face the truth. And that is, for decades, these areas of the state have been neglected. As your governor, we're going to invest in those areas. You can't bring jobs until you have those basic tenets in place. When we do that, then job creation will follow.
All right, the next question is for all the candidates. Let's go to Mark Hughes Cobb now from the Tuscaloosa News.
Non-medical use of cannabis has been decriminalized in 13 states in the U.S. Virgin Islands and legalized in another 9 states and the District of Columbia. Federal statutes have generally not been enforced, but given that earlier this year Attorney General Sessions rescinded the Cole memorandum allowing for federal intervention, where should the state move on decriminalizing, if not legalizing, marijuana? Mr.
Fields, you'll answer first. You have 45 seconds.
The state should move forward in that direction because it has been a proven fact that cannibalism medicine will help people in their suffering. And so I think the state needs to make some drastic moves, some bold moves to make sure that Alabama is healthy.
All right, thank you very much. Mayor Maddox, now you have 45 seconds.
In the last legislative session, the city of Tuscaloosa sponsored legislation that would begin the process of decriminalizing marijuana. That's step one. Number two, I would like to see full use of medical marijuana. To me, if my mother is going through chemotherapy and we can find something that can help cure the sickness of nausea, why wouldn't we want to use it? The third thing that we've got to do is we continue to look at marijuana overall, is look at the states that do have recreational use, begin the process of collecting that data, and use that data moving forward. I believe those are the three necessary steps that we can take as a state to begin moving this discussion forward.
All right, Judge Cobb, now 45 seconds to you.
I'm absolutely convinced that we have got to move toward medical marijuana. It's been proven, the data is clear, that there are a number of illnesses, whether it's seizures or a number of other things that the medical use of marijuana would be helpful for. Having been a judge for 30 years, having been in a courtroom and with the Court of Criminal Appeals, I can tell you that Alabama's drug laws are out of step with the rest of the nation. I put forward a complete analysis of those laws, and we need to look back at that because our personal use of marijuana is completely out of step with the rest of the nation, and it should be fixed.
Our next question for the candidates comes from WVTM 13 news anchor Ian Wright. Ian.
In several surveys and reports, Alabama consistently ranks near the bottom in the nation when it comes to education. Taking the lottery out of the equation, how do you fund the necessary improvements to education in our state?
Mayor Maddox, you'll start for this time. For 45 seconds to you.
Well, I don't think you can take the lottery out of the equation because we know that right now in Alabama that's going to be our best option to be able to put forward the necessary improvements we need to see in public education. In fact, our lottery plan does four things. The first thing that it does is it provides a universal pre-K program. It's an initiative we began in 2005 in Tuscaloosa. Second thing that it does is provide college scholarship programs very similar to what you see in Tennessee and Georgia and Florida. The third thing that we want to do is provide wraparound services, mental health, health care, in the 75 so struggling schools. And the last thing that it does that touches on funding that you mentioned is through our Promise program, it will begin to make up the gap between rural and urban school systems. We're going to invest $60 million to begin making up that gap. So no matter where you're born in Alabama, you can get a quality education.
All right, now to you, Judge Cobb, 45 seconds.
I agree with Mayor Maddox. You can't take the lottery out of it. And my plan for the lottery, the Lifelong Learner Lottery, what you'll see is that when we fund that $300 million a year that will come as revenue from the lottery, we will fully fund four-year-old kindergarten, where right now we're only meeting 28% of that need. That's going to create thousands of jobs. We will add child care dollars on a sliding scale. That's going to create thousands of jobs. That's going to put extra money back in the hands of the parents, young parents. Then we meet the need, the full need of career tech and the gap for Pell Grants, again, jobs. That's extra revenue that then goes into the Education Trust Fund that will help with counselors in every school, with wage increases. Our teachers should make what at least what Georgia teachers make.
And 45 seconds now to you, Mr. Fields.
I appreciate everyone depending on the lottery. And the lottery is an issue that has been before us for the last 3 or 4 election cycles. But what if we don't have the lottery? Then what do we do? We must tax fairly across the board. We can't continue to tax food, and we can't continue to tax what we call the sin tax, cigarettes and alcohol, hoping that we're going to have enough funds to fund our education system. We got to make some hard and tough decisions, and that's what an executive will do. If I have to wait and depend on the lottery to fund education, then my education system is going to falter and fail. So the Fields plan, we do believe if the lottery is passed, we have a plan for that. You can go on to jamesfields4al.com and it will explain to you how it will work.
We're out of time, Mr. Fields. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But Guy Rawlings has our next question for the candidates. Guy?
Since we've touched on the lottery, in 1998, the state had the opportunity to vote on a lottery. It was voted down. Obviously, it's been 20 years since then. I'm sure attitudes have changed. Do you feel attitudes have changed towards a lottery for the state? And number two, how do you get it on the ballot?
Judge Cobb, we'll begin with you. 45 seconds.
Guy, I absolutely believe that attitudes have changed. There have been a lot of Powerballs since the lottery came up the last time. And we have talked with people from one end of the state to the other, and they just think it's silly that we do not have a lottery. I'm convinced it's going to take the right governor to make it happen. and I want to offer to the people that I'm that person. The reason is we've got to have somebody with the experience that has actually worked with the legislature and advocated for big legislation. It's going to take somebody that's going to hold legislators accountable, and that's been my entire job, my entire career, is holding people accountable. So I do believe the people of Alabama want a lottery, and when we do, we can transform the state and make Alabama the envy of the South.
Mr. Fields, that same question to you, 45 seconds.
The lottery was an issue in '98, and the lottery became an issue, I know, in 2008 when I served in the state legislature. And a particular bill came up as it pertained to lottery and bingo gambling. The problem is that over 76% of the people in Alabama want the ability to vote on a lottery bill. The problem is we want to attach too much stuff to it that weighs it down, and no one can get a clean bill. Now, James Fields will introduce legislation that will make sure that the people will have a clean piece of legislation to pass the lottery, if that's what they want, to be able to vote on.
45 seconds to you now, Mayor Maddox.
I believe Alabamians are tired of educating children in Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. And I also know what it's like to afford college. I went to school right here in Birmingham, earned my undergrad and master's right at UAB. I had to take out student loans just to be able to afford the cost of college. I'm fortunate my parents, both school teachers, could help me along the way. A lot of Alabamians don't. Making college affordable is a big issue throughout Alabama. I think the time has come for that lottery plan to pass. Now, I don't have the experience of Montgomery. I've defined my success to the city of Tuscaloosa. But during my 12.5 years as the mayor of one of our largest cities, I find when you forge common ground, you can get a lot of things done.
Okay, now the next questions are going to be specifically directed to each individual candidate. Now, each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond, and we're going to begin with Mark Hughes Cobb from the Tuscaloosa News with a question for Judge Cobb.
Especially in the wake of the Parkland shooting, polls indicate growing support for stricter gun laws, with one February 28th national poll showing 68% for, just 25% opposing. But between the Second Amendment and the Alabama Constitution, Section 26 of the Declaration of Rights, that every citizen has a right to bear arms in defense of himself and the state, how can the state respond to calls for gun reform?
Judge Cobb, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I'm absolutely convinced, Mark, that there are reasonable ways that we can reduce gun violence that do not run afoul of the Second Amendment. Having been a judge for 30 years, having been on the Supreme Court, I'm convinced that we can find those ways. We've had a meeting this week where 2 young children came forward, and the questions they came forward with regarded security. How are you going to make us safe? I'm convinced, again, that the lottery, with the extra resources, can help us put school counselors, for one, that would go in every single school that could help monitor every child to see are there troubled children. That would be a great help. There's technology that is really easy to afford that would help give immediate access to law enforcement to see what's going on inside the school. There's a number of things that need to be done. It's going to take the right governor who can work with the legislature, can work with both sides of the aisle to make it happen.
WVTM 13 News anchor Ian Wrights will ask the next question to Mr. Fields.
There's been a big focus recently on attracting major corporations to Alabama, companies like Amazon and various car manufacturers. According to the U.S. Small Business Administration, there are more than 388,000 small businesses in the state of Alabama, and they employ hundreds of thousands of people. How do you help those small businesses thrive and then stay in Alabama?
Mr. Fields, you have 60 seconds.
First, we must invest in our small businesses, because small businesses is what makes our communities and keep our family whole. Small businesses provide jobs, and we must find ways to fund them. We want to continue to recruit big industry to come to Alabama. We want Alabama to be a state where everybody wants to come and be a part of it. But we got to take care of the mom and pops, and we got to invest in our small businesses, because they employ our young people. They keep them home. They don't have to, when they finish college, they don't have to go off to another state to look for employment. They can stay here at home and work. And so we must invest. So we must find ways and find the money, and it's there. Alabama is not a poor state. It's just that we got to bring everybody together to begin to work together to make these things happen. When community is whole, government is better. When community is faltering, government falters. And government don't make communities. Communities produce government. And the reason we have such a failure in our government today is people
We're out
are
of
failing
time,
to vote.
Mr. Fields. Next question, though, is from Mayor Maddox from WVTM 13 News anchor Guy Rawlings.
You've led Tuscaloosa since 2005. You've been reelected 3 times in your city. Obviously, you know how to win in your city and lead your city. How do you translate that experience into leading the whole state?
You have 60 seconds, Mayor Maddox.
I think people today, whether you're Republican or Democrat or Independent, you care about the same things. You want to make sure that your children are getting quality education. You want to make certain that your health care access is there when you need it. And if you're going through a tough time, you want to make certain that your leaders care about you and they want to make a difference. I've been honored to serve Tuscaloosa for the last 12 and a half years. And to have the opportunity to serve my hometown, what I found has worked is when you take away parties and you focus on people, when you're focused on results and not rhetoric. That's the new type of covenant we want to forge with Alabama politics. I'm not a Montgomery insider. I don't know the ways of Montgomery. But what I do know is success. And I do know that when you forge common ground, when you talk about the issues that matter, when you focus on plans instead of platitudes, people respond to that. The people of Alabama work hard every day, and they expect their elected officials to work hard too. I know that you pay my salary, and every day through transparency, through hard work, and ultimately through success, that's what I believe will translate to Montgomery.
We want to return now to questions for all 3 candidates. And again, you all have 45 seconds each to respond. We're going to begin with Mark Hughes-Cobb from the Tuscaloosa News.
Red-blue polarization seems to be at historically high levels. Common ground has become no man's land. Bipartisanship seems synonymous with collusion. How, as a Democratic leader in a traditionally Republican-leaning state, can you not only reach across the aisle, but set the tone that begins to bridge those gaps?
Mr. Fields, you'll start. You have 45 seconds.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And people know James Fields. They know James Fields is a man of integrity and commitment. When I was elected in Cullman, Alabama, people thought, well, it's impossible for an African American to win in a county that is 98% white, or 98% Republican, 99% white. So we're able to forge the differences. We understand where people hurt, and we believe in Alabama. It's not a matter of being a Democrat leader or a Republican leader. It's about being a leader that has integrity, a leader that is committed to doing the task and staying with it all the way through.
Mayor Maddox, you're next. 45 seconds.
Well, whether your family member is suffering from the opioid crisis, or whether your school that you go to is not achieving results, or whether your hospital could potentially close in the months ahead, those are not Republican or Democrat or Independent issues. They're Alabama issues. And my entire career has been about creating success regardless of politics, regardless of race, or regardless of any of the petty things that divide us. So where can I show where bipartisanship works? House Bill 600. 2 years ago, a Republican in Bill Poole and a Democrat in Chris England, we came together to pass House Bill 600 that's going to invest over $100 million in state highways. That's just one example of bringing people together with a common cause to forge common ground for the common good.
45 seconds now to you.
Thank you, Lisa. Toxic partisanship is killing us. It's hurting our democracy. As a judge, I never made a single decision based on party, not one. I didn't rule because somebody was a Democrat or against a Republican. I've determined what the facts were, applied the law, and reached a fair result. It's that kind of process that we've got to take to Montgomery, and we've got to ensure that we have as someone who leads the executive branch. I can tell you that on the big issues, we truly do, most of us agree. We agree on the big issues. The question is who's going to provide the ability to give everybody the opportunity to be heard, to listen to all sides, and really try to reach to the middle.
Ian Wrights has our next question for all the candidates.
Alabama could soon be the auto capital of the South. It is the 4th biggest state in the United States when it comes to auto manufacturing. 40,000 people have jobs in the automotive manufacturing sector, and a new Toyota Mazda plant in Huntsville will add another 4,000 jobs. So as governor, what are you going to do to continue to attract more automotive production to the state?
Mayor Maddox, you begin. 45 seconds.
Well, I think the biggest challenge facing Alabama is workforce development, and if we're going to continue to recruit manufacturing into our state, we've got to realign how we approach this issue. Right now in Alabama, we have nearly 600,000 people who are underemployed. When you talk to big industry in this state, they'll tell you finding a capable workforce is what we've got to do to be ready for this 21st century economy. That's why in our lottery plan, we focus on expanding apprenticeship programs, workforce development programs. That's why as governor, we're going to streamline workforce development efforts, have a cabinet secretary that cuts across 4 different departments that handle it now. If we're going to meet the economic challenges of the future, we have to have a workforce that's ready to tackle it.
Judge Cobb, you have 45 seconds.
Workforce development is the key. We've got to find a way to pay for it. I'm convinced that my proposal of the Lifelong Learner Lottery, which will add $50 million per year toward career tech so that every single child who's not destined for a traditional university education can actually have that skill to support their family. We've got to have dual enrollment. We've got to work with our existing tech schools, but we've got to make sure that every community has the workforce development that's tailored for that specific community. Whether we need another car manufacturer, that remains to be seen. But we've got to get away from the fact that Alabama has the 4th highest number of minimum wage jobs in the nation. The average age for the minimum wage worker in Alabama is 35, and that's unacceptable. And as governor, I'm going to work to fix that.
We're out of time. Mr. Fields, 45 seconds.
Thank you. I believe I referred to it first when the question was asked about the unemployment rate being so low. And the problem is Alabama is underemployed. And it's not so much, and we've seen the lottery float from funding education down to funding workforce development. Either lottery is going to fund education or it's going to fund workforce development. People are coming to Alabama because they know that people in Alabama are hard workers. They value family. We just need to make sure that the employers are paying a proper wage. We need to continue to recruit big business, but big business need to understand that they got to pay their fair share in Alabama. Our people in Alabama are hard-working families. They believe in family. They believe in family values.
Guy Rawlings has our next question.
A constant complaint in the state is the state of roads and bridges and highways, and studies indicate congestion is expected to grow on our interstates, which could impact future development and attracting industries. As governor, what would you do to improve and build more roads for interstate commerce and residential traffic?
We begin with you, Judge Cobb, 45 seconds.
Guy, infrastructure is a huge issue in Alabama. 20% of our roads and bridges are obsolete. We know that we have counties that are literally digging up paved roads and putting them back to dirt. I'm convinced that the people of Alabama we don't want to be known as the generation that created more dirt roads than paved roads. But the more difficult thing is how do we pay for it? I'm going to be proposing a modest but adequate fuel tax, a tax that has not been elevated in over a quarter of a century. We know that there are other issues regarding infrastructure that have to do with our water system and our sewage treatment system, where we have many counties that are falling far behind. So there's other infrastructure issues as well, but we've got to expand I-65 and maintain our roads and bridges.
Mr. Fields, now to you, 45 seconds.
I believe I heard tonight that we passed a House bill that provided several hundreds of millions of dollars for infrastructure building roads. It's going to still be congested if we continue to recruit big industry, especially in the north. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the congestion right now. There's no doubt that we have crumbled bridges and roads or in some areas need repair. But we need to figure out a way to move people across our state. And one of the Fields plans is a commuter rail. If we set up a commuter rail, we can move people from Birmingham to Atlanta, from Birmingham to Nashville, from Birmingham to Montgomery. We could get them across our state. It will create jobs. And we have the best engineers graduating from our local universities.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fields, we're out of time. We got to go to Mayor Maddox, 45 seconds.
Today in Alabama, 1 million people drove over a bridge that's functionally obsolete. I support the Alabama Alliance for Infrastructure plan, but let me add a couple of caveats. Number one, it needs to be transparent. Every single expenditure from this plan needs to be posted online for the people to see. The second thing is that I disagree with the approach that's being taken where we're not putting forward the projects first. People will only buy into something they believe that they're investing in. And I think it's very important as we move forward with this that people understand where their tax dollars are going. That formula has worked for us in Tuscaloosa. I know that it will work for us as a state.
Mark Hughes Cobb has our next question for all the candidates.
Alabama's infant mortality rate is apparently still rising. 537 children born in 2016 died before reaching the age of 1, a rate of more than 9 per 1,000 births, which is not only second worst in the United States, but is higher than developing countries such as Bahrain, Sri Lanka, Oman, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Cyprus, and Ukraine. How would you direct efforts to improve health care for women and infants?
We begin with Mr. Fields, 45 seconds.
First, one of the things that the Fields administration would do is definitely sign the Medicaid expansion, because it provides health care for our children, for our seniors. And that's why we're faced with the reality of losing children at an early age, because in our rural counties, a lot of the hospitals are closing and people are having to drive far distance for health care. And so we must get the Medicaid expansion passed, signed into law, and the governor can do that. And this is one governor that will do that, to make sure that Alabama is healthy everywhere, not just in the north, not just in the south, in the east and the west. If one part of Alabama is hurting, all of Alabama is hurting. And we need to be concerned with this infant mortality rate, because that is our future.
I'm sorry, time's up. Time's up, Mr. Fields. 45 seconds to you now, Mayor Maddox.
We want to expand Medicaid day one, and we will do so by executive order. Since the state failed to expand Medicaid, we've seen 6 rural hospitals close, 2 others announce their closure, and 2 other counties having to raise their taxes just to keep their hospital open. That has hurt and diminished prenatal care in Alabama. In fact, we rank 50th in premature births. Here's the other thing that expanding Medicaid will do. It will allow us to keep pediatric clinics open. It will allow us to keep OBGYN offices open. And it will help us ensure that in these areas, especially the rural parts of the state, that when we're dealing with issues related to pregnancy, that there are doctors within an area so we do not have transportation gaps that prevent access to prenatal care.
All right, Judge Cobb, 45 seconds.
Thank you, Lisa. All of us are going to agree that Medicaid should be expanded, and it should be expanded. It was just flat wrong for Governor Bentley, a doctor, to not expand Medicaid, causing us, Alabama, to lose billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, and thousands of lives. The question is who is the one that can actually get there and do something that will make it happen? I've worked with many other child advocates on the issue of Medicaid. I'm not a Johnny-come-lately to this issue. I have advocated for the expansion of Medicaid through the Children First Foundation for decades. Medicaid has got to be expanded. We've got to convince the people of Alabama that the expansion of Medicaid benefits all of us, because it's the economic engine that provides access to health care for us all.
Thank you very much. And we're actually going to take a short break right now. We are live from the Vulcan Parking Museum in Birmingham, the WVTM 13 primary debate with the candidates for governor. We'll be right back.
You're watching the Alabama Democratic Gubernatorial Primary Debate on WVTM 13.
Welcome back, everyone. We're about halfway through our one-hour debate between three of the Democratic candidates running for governor. Former Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, Sue Bell Cobb, former State Representative James Fields, and Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox. We're going to continue now with a question for all three of the candidates from WVTM 13's Guy Rawlings.
The future holds a lot of challenges for Alabama as the state moves forward. What does progress in Alabama look like to you, and what directions do you aim to lead the state?
Mayor Maddox, we'll start with you. 45 seconds.
Progress looks like to me when every child in the state, regardless of where they're born, can be educated. Progress looks like to me that every Alabamian who wants a good job can get a great job. Progress looks like to me when we have the ability to ensure health care access across all of Alabama. And progress will be measured to me when we change the way we have expectations of Montgomery. Right now, our expectations of Montgomery have been to see that our three top leaders, Governor, House Speaker, House Majority Leader, all leave office under a cloud of shame. We have to change our expectations in Alabama and demand leaders who want results. To me, that's when we can really begin to measure progress in our state.
Judge Cobb, now to you. 45 seconds.
Progress to me means that the people of Alabama actually believe again. They believe that the people that they have elected to serve them are actually ethically working every single day to make good things happen for them and their families. Progress to me is for every single child in Alabama to be successful when they get to first grade and then go on and be a success in life. Progress to me means those that are troubled, those that are mentally ill and have issues, that we have the services so that we can help them and their families. Progress to me means that Alabama will become the envy of the South.
Now 45 seconds to you, Mr. Fields.
Progress. Progress to me is to be just straightforward with those of you who are watching by way of television. Without change, nothing changes. And we're that change in which you seek. Progress. Progress is when every child has access to affordable health care, when every child in our state have access to a quality education. That's progress. Progress is moving a child from one point to the next, a family, making families whole. That's progress. Progress is someone like James Fields leading the state of Alabama to a brighter and bolder future. Progress is connecting the millennials, the
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off there, Mr. Fields. I'm sorry, but we're going to go now to another question from Mark Hughes Cobb from the Tuscaloosa News. Go ahead, Mark.
Our underserved counties, largely in but not limited to the Black Belt, seem mired in cycles of poverty, tax bases minuscule, infrastructure crumbling, dwindling workforces unlikely to attract industry or investment. Can you give us an idea that hasn't already been exhausted, a self-sustaining plan to make long-term differences?
Judge Cobb, we'll start with you. 45 seconds.
The rural counties, one of the things that we know that they could do is going to depend on clean water. Outdoor economy, I'm from Evergreen, I'm from a rural county, Conecuh County, and we know that one of our most important opportunities is going to depend on clean water. And unfortunately, we have 31 counties that have lead that's in excess of Flint, Michigan, is either comparable or excess of Flint, Michigan, just like Tuscaloosa. We have sewage systems that are spewing out into our beautiful rivers, like Tuscaloosa. It's something that we've got to fix. We've got to fully fund ADEM so that they can have clean water and water quality enforcement.
I'm sorry, we have to stop you right there, Judge Cobb. 45 seconds now to you, Mr. Fields.
That's one of the things, and Judge Cobb is correct. In our rural counties, it saddened and broke my heart in the county of Wilcox County when I watched the news one evening back in October of 17, and a family walking down the road with milk jugs just to get drinking water. This is 2018 now, and they're still walking down that road. And we got to change that. And we need a leader who understands when one part, again, of Alabama is hurting, all of Alabama is hurting, folks. And we have got to do something about that. And this is an individual with a group of people that can move Alabama forward. Without change, nothing changes.
Mayor Maddox, now to you, 45 seconds.
The Black Belt has had a disservice over too many years. They've had platitudes, they've had plans, they've even had rhetoric. What they really need is action, and that's what we're going to do. First, we're going to invest in education through our Alabama Education Lottery Plan, beginning with providing universal pre-K. Second, day one, we're going to expand Medicaid, which is going to improve health care vastly in our Black Belt counties. Third thing, we're going to begin investing into our roads and bridges. We cannot change economic outcomes, healthcare outcomes, education outcomes, until we're willing to invest into those areas. We've had enough task forces, strategic plans, rhetoric from Montgomery. What we need is action, and that's what we're going to do.
WVTM 13's Ian Wrights has our next question for all the candidates.
Alabama has one of the lowest rates of primary care physicians in the country. In the last legislature, a bill was introduced that would have addressed the rural doctor shortage. The measure called for paying medical school tuition for 25 students who would then practice medicine in underserved parts of the state for 5 years. As governors, what ideas do you have to make sure our rural underserved areas have access to health care?
Mr. Fields, we'll start with you. You have 45 seconds.
Continue that same direction. Encourage our young children who are going on to further their education in the medical field to go to work in our rural counties. But we can do all of that if the people don't have access or a way to get out of there, or transportation. We can provide all the health care in the world. They still need help, and they need jobs, and employers need to pay their fair share. So we need to invest in our rural communities, we need to invest in the Black Belt, and we need to make sure that they have the same access to everything that everybody has in North Alabama. We have got to provide accessibility to the people in the Black Belt.
All right, thank you very much. Mayor Maddox, 45 seconds.
The expansion of Medicaid day one is going to be a huge help in that area. Number two is we want to mimic what we've done in Tuscaloosa with our community paramedicine program. By teaming with the University of Alabama, local physicians, and Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue, we're able to work directly with Medicaid patients on the preventive side, or low acuity calls, to ensure that we can get the preventative care so we do not get the more expensive visits into the ER room. Now, not every rural community is going to have a fire department, but in every county in this state, you have nursing homes, and you have other health care facilities. We've got to start thinking differently. We can't think like Montgomery. We have to think asymmetrically and leverage every access of our healthcare community and the state and local governments to address this problem holistically.
Judge Cobb, now to you, 45 seconds.
With the annual $300 million of revenue from the lottery, that is going to help greatly in terms of having possibilities for folks to get their education and then ultimately to be able to go on to med school. But if we do not expand Medicaid, and if we do not save the 74% of our rural and community hospitals that are now operating in the red at a loss, no physicians are going to come to the rural areas. So we've got to save them. Telemedicine is extremely important in our rural areas and would help the doctors be able to take advantage of the expertise from UAB and other hospitals. But this is something that we've got to talk about. We've got to recognize that it's a significant issue, and we've got to have the bold leadership in Montgomery to make sure that we can fix the problem.
Guy Rawlings has our next question.
A 1939 state law allows sheriffs to keep funds left over after feeding their prisoners. In 2009, Morgan County Sheriff was arrested by federal agents after admitted to keeping more than $200,000. Last month, the Etowah County Sheriff admitted to receiving $750,000 over 3 years in excess funds for the program. Morgan and Coleman counties are building local legislation to cut down on systemic exploitation. Should a move like that be implemented statewide?
Mayor Maddox, we begin with you, 45 seconds.
This practice needs to end. It's absolutely disgraceful. Again, these are the ways of Montgomery. I'm not a Montgomery insider. I'm not from inside the Montgomery Beltway. But it's programs like this that have been allowed to exist in Etowah County, where we literally have taken money that should have been going to these services for prisoners and taken it for personal profit, and it all be legal. We can no longer accept this dynamic. We need a new covenant in our politics. We need bold leadership that actually understands how you accomplish things. What you saw in Montgomery to me, is the best case why we need change. Allowing this statute to continue to exist, to me, is unimaginable, and as governor, we will work to repeal it.
Judge Cobb, now to you.
It's hard to comprehend how a sheriff in the first place can use the minuscule amount of daily amount that's given per diem for inmate to be fed. It's just hard for the math to work out. But it's something that must change. But we've also need sentencing reform as well. But yes, I absolutely would support an effort to change the way inmates are fed so that it's transparent. The public needs to know. They need to know how every dime is spent, whether it's from the city, the county, or the state. And if Sue Bell Cobb becomes governor, when I become governor, I'm going to make sure that that transparency exists.
Mr. Fields, now to you.
Again, the citizens of Alabama needs to demand a better accountability from the people that they elect to serve them. And that's from the sheriff, through the legislators, through the governor's office, through the justice seats, and so forth. The moment we turn our back on what is happening and we close our eyes and hope it's going to get better, it's not. And now that it has come to light, Alabama needs to talk to their legislators, make them accountable, because they're the ones that's making the laws. And that is taxpayers' dollars now. That is taxpayer dollars. And our legislators are on the payroll 12 months out of a year. And they need to demand better accountability from our legislators.
I've got to stop you right there, Mr. Fields. I'm sorry, but we're going to go now. It's time for candidates to pose questions to one another. Each candidate has 30 seconds to ask the question. There's going to be 60 seconds for each response with a 30-second rebuttal. And Judge Cobb, you're the first with your question for Mayor Maddox.
Mayor Maddox, in light of the fact that the 1010 proposal that came before the City Council of Tuscaloosa happened prior to the Alabama legislature enacting its prohibition against local governments increasing the minimum wage, how would you convince the voters of Alabama that you truly are for increasing the minimum wage, since you used all of your power and influence to defeat the minimum wage when it came before the City Council in Tuscaloosa?
Mayor Maddox, you have 60 seconds.
Let's be clear, I support the minimum wage increase. In fact, the city of Tuscaloosa was the only entity I know that went on record supporting not only a statewide minimum wage increase, but tying it to the CPI. Let's also understand this. When you elect me governor, I'm going to swear an oath to the people of this state and also to follow the laws of this land. The legislation that Judge Cobb is talking about, and she should know better than most, would have allowed cities, well, in this particular case, the legislation she's talking about would have allowed cities to raise minimum wage. However, that would have violated Alabama law. One thing you're not going to find with me is I'm not a very good politician. I'm not going to say things at press conferences so everybody will applaud. I'm going to do what's right every single time. It would have been wrong of me to promise something to the citizens of Tuscaloosa I couldn't deliver. It would have been wrong of me to put Tuscaloosa in a position of costly legislation, of costly litigation. That's not the type of leader I am. I'd rather tell the truth, move forward together, and make good things happen.
Now you have 30 seconds for rebuttal, Judge Cobb.
Mayor, the minimum wage is $7.25. Alabama has the fourth highest number of minimum wage employees in the state. You had an opportunity with the effort to raise the minimum wage in the city of Tuscaloosa to $10.10. The legislation had not passed. I think.
And Judge, how many city attorneys supported that? 1 out of 462?
I'm not sure about that, Mayor.
Now, would you as a judge agree that 1 out of 462 are the odds that you want to jeopardize the financial solvency of your city?
I totally disagree.
Would you want to promise people something you know legally they couldn't deliver? And would you be taking this position if you weren't running for governor?
I'm telling you right now that people need to look at what past behavior gives to future.
So you're saying that cities of Alabama,
Lisa, do you think he would allow me to finish?
Cities of Alabama had the legal authority
We need to wrap it up, and I
enact
think
that
you have a few
legislation?
seconds left on your rebuttal, Judge Cobb.
Thank you.
Let's
and
give
I
you a few
think
more
I got a
seconds.
chance to start over again since he interrupted me, is the way I understood it. Is that correct?
We'll start the time again. Yes, you have 30 seconds.
Mayor, you've had an opportunity a number of times to talk about this issue, and when you have, you've indicated that the law was it would be unconstitutional. And I can tell you, having been a judge for 30 years, that simply is not true. The bill had not passed. It had just been filed. You did not know if it was going to pass or not unless you're clairvoyant. So you had an opportunity to help the citizens of Tuscaloosa elevate from $7 to 25 cents to $10.10. I have one question for you, Mayor.
We are out of time and we need to go. I'm sorry. We're out of time.
Question for you. What you know
Gentlemen,
are rulings, but what
ladies,
you don't know are results.
Mayor Maddox, you get to ask the next question. Let's start that now. Your question is going to be directed to Mr. Fields, and you have 30 seconds to ask your question.
Mr. Fields, as you know, the plight of mental health is something very important to me. And in 2009, the city of Tuscaloosa, under our leadership, sued Governor Bob Riley to keep Bryce Hospital open. You were in the legislature at the time, and I know that this was an important issue to you. And if you're the nominee and if you're elected governor, what will you do to specifically improve mental health in Alabama?
Mr. Fields, you have 60 seconds.
6 seconds. Thank you, Mayor Maddox, for asking. Hopefully, the next nominee for the Democrat to be the governor of the great state of Alabama. When you have compassion, when you have dealt with it all your life, a Fields administration will make sure that funding is fully restored. What we're doing, we're skirting or dancing around the issue, Mayor. And we must do something to make sure that mental health is totally funded and we got qualified people working in our mental health facilities to provide the care that our families need for their loved ones. And anyone that fails in a situation like that or in that arena should be ashamed of themselves. And when I fought for that legislation in '09 to make sure that mental health would be totally funded, I could not fathom looking at grown men and women fighting against it.
You have 30 seconds now for your rebuttal.
I knew Mr. Fields' strong support for mental health, and it's the support of mental health and other issues that, quite frankly, don't get the limelight is why I want to run for governor. In Alabama, we have lost 4 mental health facilities in the last 7 years. So many of those that are in our jails, those that are homeless, are clients of the Alabama Department of Mental Health who have not received services. That's unacceptable to me. And as governor, we're going to make certain that we address this problem.
Mr. Fields, it's now your turn to ask a question to Judge Cobb. You have 30 seconds for your question.
So you agree with me?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm Judge Cobb, thank you for being a friend. After June the 5th, and James Fields is the nominee for governor on the Democrat ticket, can James Fields and his team depend on your support, or are you wavering to support someone else?
You have 60 seconds to answer.
James, I can promise you from the bottom of my heart that if you win the Democrat nomination, I am going to work night and day for you to be the next governor. Alabama has suffered under Republican leadership, though I don't think that party means everything. We know that in the past we have suffered from failed leadership. And I promise you that I'm going to support the nominee for the Democrat Party. And if you are that nominee, which you well could be, I promise you and pledge you my support.
Mr. Fields, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal, if you'd like to rebut.
Tell you, that was very powerful, wasn't it? Thank you, Judge Cobb. That would be such an honor for the people of Alabama to make a change that will move us forward. And to hear you say those words mean a lot to our campaign and our campaign team. This race boils down to the people of Alabama has to make a tough decision on June the 5th. And I hope that I'm the nominee.
We're out of time, Mr. Fields. I'm so sorry, but we're going to move on to the next question. It's going to be for all 3 candidates. We begin with Mark Hughes Cobb from the Tuscaloosa News.
Running in a state that tends to vote Republican, how do you plan to reach the recalcitrant, never a Democrat voters? And are there facets of Doug Jones' recent come-from-behind victory that offer instruction?
Judge Cobb, we'll start with you. You have 45 seconds.
Mark, absolutely. The Doug Jones victory demonstrated in Alabama that a Democrat can win. The Doug Jones victory basically reassured voters that once again got enthused about the process. They became informed, they got energized, they got out and worked. So a Democrat can win this race. What we have seen through the ethical and the lapses and the drama that we've seen in Montgomery of late with Speaker Mike Hubbard and Governor Bentley and others, what we've seen is that people now realize that party doesn't mean that someone's a good leader or a good person. So I really believe that right now a Democrat has a better chance than ever, and I believe that a female Democrat has a better chance. I think that 2018 is the year of the woman. I believe that our ideas on the lottery—
I have to stop you right there,
Thank
Judge
you.
Cobb. I'm sorry. Mr. Fields, same question to you, 45 seconds.
A Democrat can win, and a Democrat who is true to his or her values and their commitment to serve. We have been in service all of our lives. For 28 and a half years, I worked in public service, helping families find jobs and receiving their unemployment and directing them into a different direction to become whole again. Serving as a pastor, sitting and listening to families as they are crumbling because father's lost a job or mother's lost a job or the loss of a loved one. Alabama is ready for true commitment. They are tired of walking on the shards of glass that has been left by the previous administration.
And we're out of time. That's it for us. But Mayor Maddox, you have 45 seconds now.
I believe Alabama is ready to elect a Democrat as governor, a Democrat that has proven that he can create results, a Democrat that's proven that it's better to promise what you can deliver than just promise, and a Democrat that understands that Alabama is looking for a candidate who can actually deliver on the problems in front of them. Tomorrow morning, a mother's going to send her child off to school with the false belief he or she is going to be ready for a 21st century technology-driven economy. We know through our Alabama Education Lottery Plan we can have that child ready. We know that tomorrow, too many families will not have health care access because their local hospital will close. We're going to expand Medicaid day one so that hospital stays open. It's about results, proven results, and not rhetoric.
It is now time for closing statements. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to say why they deserve your vote, and we're going to begin with Mayor Maddox.
I want to thank the people of Alabama for tuning in tonight, and I want to thank my fellow candidates for this opportunity. On April 27, 2011, Tuscaloosa was devastated by a tornado. In just 6 minutes, 53 lives were taken, 3,000 homes destroyed, and 7,000 jobs disappeared. In the face of this crisis, I never wavered, and together we rebuilt our city. Today, Alabama's schools, infrastructure, mental health, corrections, and health care, they're in crisis, and there are no hopes for solutions. We need a new covenant in our politics, because this election is who is best capable to deliver us from crisis. For my family, for your family, for all of Alabama. We need a governor who truly understands our concerns and can help shape a brighter future for Alabama. I believe I can be that governor, and I respectfully ask for your vote on June 5th.
Judge Cobb, you now have 60 seconds for your closing statement.
Thank you, Lisa. And I want to thank Channel 13 and the listeners tonight for spending some time with us this evening. When I was 25, I put on a black robe and started making decisions over people's lives, and my life was changed forever by what I saw in that courtroom. Women and children ravaged by abuse and neglect because of lack of economic opportunity, lack of education, lack of mental health services, and just the basic programs that our state should supply to those in need. As the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, I'm the only candidate who has written, drafted, advocated for, secured the passage, and then implemented sweeping bipartisan legislation. It's time to have a governor who cares more about the next generation than the next election. It's time to have a governor who will put people before party and politics. I ask for your vote on June 5th. I ask each of you to join with me. It's time.
Mr. Fields, now 60 seconds for your closing statement.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Channel 13, and thank all of you who are sitting at home now trying to make up your minds on who you're going to vote for. We can do the same thing and we'll get the same results. Or we can sit and discuss with our family around the table and say, let's make a change. and James Fields is that change. James Fields is a leader. James Fields is a committed man. James Fields is a son. James Fields is a brother. James Fields is a husband. James Fields is a father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, and proud of it. James Fields believes in family values. James Fields believes in the future of Alabama. James Fields knows that without change, nothing changes. In Alabama, we need to move forward. And James Fields, the campaign team, we have a plan. And we believe in working together because we must connect the future of Alabama right now.
We're going to have to stop you right there. Thank you so much, all of you, for your closing statements. That's going to conclude our debate tonight. We want to thank Judge Sue Bell Cobb, James Fields, Mayor Walt Maddox for agreeing to take part tonight. And we want to thank our panel as well, Mark Hughes Cobb of the Tuscaloosa News and WVTM 13's Guy Rawlings and Ian Wrights. We're going to be back tomorrow night from the same location where 3 of the candidates in the Republican primary for governor will take part in a debate. Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle, Scott Dawson, and State Senator Bill Hightower will square off at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Governor Ivey declined our offer to participate in tomorrow night's debate. She will be in Birmingham tomorrow night throwing out the first pitch at the Barons game, though, and our invitation to debate remains open to her if she would like to show up. Don't forget to vote on Tuesday, June 5th. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a good night.
More Commitment 2018 coverage right now on WVTM13.com and the WVTM 13 app.